Today we are going to talk about how to do a solid notables profile. And what I'm going to show you is how we do a profile for a notable that perhaps we don't know a whole lot about. We want to get a great profile up there, but we don't have necessarily the time to be doing all the research that we might otherwise. Um, so we have somebody that we know a little bit about, maybe not a whole lot about, but we still want to get a solid profile for them. And we are this show, this workshop today is co-hosted by notables and U.S. presidents. I happen to co-lead both of those. Norman here is in the group with us. He is my co-leader for the U.S. presidents. Scott is my co-leader for the notables. He couldn't be with us today, but this is uh, a collaboration. What we're going to talk about primarily is how to do a notables profile, but we're going to do it from the perspective of a presidential family member, and that would be Rose Cleveland. Rose Cleveland was the um, daughter of, I'm sorry, the sister of Grover Cleveland. Grover Cleveland was a bachelor when he became president, and Rose Cleveland filled in as the first lady until he actually got married while in office. So prior to his marriage, she served as acting first lady. If I scroll down here a bit, you're going to see that what we have is a brief statement of notability that says why she's famous, and we have nothing else. She has no biography. So we are going to work on fleshing out her biography today. And what I want to show you, some of us are really great at writing biographies, and some of us not so much. Some of us may be better than we realize we are. Excuse me, I'm sorry. But what I want to show you is how, even if you're not great at writing biographies, there are tools that we have available to us now to help you do that. We're going to talk about using AI, and we're going to talk about using sources like Wikipedia and other online resources that some of us have maybe been told to stay away from. There's legitimate reasons that you may have been told that, but these are still tools that we can use to support our efforts in getting a good biography going. So we have what we're going to start with, and I did a little bit of research in the beginning here, so I've got a jump start. But I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to pause for just a minute and grab some water, and then I'll be right back. I'm sorry. Okay, my apologies for that. Okay, so what we're going to do is kind of start at the very beginning with Rose Cleveland's profile and figure out how we're going to get a really solid profile in place without knowing anything about Rose Cleveland in advance. There's two things that make doing a notables profile different from doing other profiles. One is that we don't spend as much time typically on a notable as we might with our own family. So you may spend, I've got family members that I've been researching for years, even decades. A notable, I'm going to be spending an hour. I'm going to be spending a half hour, an hour, maybe an afternoon, maybe even a couple days, but I'm not going to be spending weeks and months and years researching this profile. So I need to be able to get information pretty rapidly. The second piece of it is that there's a ton of information usually out there about these notables that isn't out there for our regular for our own family members. So these ancestors that I'm spending months and weeks and years researching of my own, it's because the information isn't out there. The information on the notables is going to be more readily available. The negative side of that is that you may be overwhelmed with information. If you're writing a profile on George Washington, there's novels and volumes of material out there. How are you going to condense that into a single page for WikiTree? So there's pros and cons to that. So how are we going to sift through all this information, figure out what we need and what we don't need, turn it into an appropriate WikiTree profile, and how are we going to make sure we're focusing on the genealogical aspect and not so much just repeating what's on WikiTree or what's on the other biographical sites. So I have started out, if we go back to do we have the Wikipedia page up currently?
Yes.
Wikipedia. Okay, so when we go to the Wikipedia page, this is how I start out. I go to Wikipedia and I look at the headings. So you see here we've got early life, scrolling down, acting first lady. Okay, those two are pretty obvious. What happened before she became first lady? What happened as first lady? Scroll down a little bit later, we've got later life. And now here's some things that I'm learning just by reading the headings. Her literary and academic career. Okay, that's something I'm going to have to learn about. Her relationship with Evangeline Mars Whipple. I don't know who that is. So that's something I'm going to need to do some research on. And then we've got life in Italy. So there's a segment of her life that I'm going to need to look into. And then I tend to leave out the legacy and study as a heading, but I'll incorporate that into other pieces. And I also usually end up with death as the final chapter, which they don't have here. Now I've already saved these pieces. So what I'm going to do is we now have the WikiTree profile up. I'm going to go to edit. And I've got these saved on a word processor that I'm now cutting and pasting over here. And I'm going to save. Okay. And now I've got headings. Okay. And what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to use these headings as a guideline. These are elements of her life that the Wikipedia team has felt were important. So I'm going to assume that these are going to be important for her WikiTree bio as well. I may, as I read through these, find that there is information that I don't want to include. I may find that there's additional information that I do want to include. I may determine that, for example, in her early life, maybe there's 2 or 3 segments that I want to break that into. Maybe there's her early childhood and then her education and life experience as a young adult. So I may not stick with these categories, but this is my starting point. Then what I'm going to do, and this is what I would have had in place had I stuck with my original individual that I was going to work on. But I've gone to Google, and I'm going to look down here and I'm going to look for biographies written about her on what I would consider to be legitimate sites. So we have here the White House Historical Association. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to look here, and they've got a biography on her. So I can cut and paste this onto my word processor. And I don't think you can see my word processor, but that's okay. You can trust that I'm doing that. Then I'm going to go to the next one. Now, I'm going to give a disclaimer here. I should have given right at the start. I'm rushing through this today because we only have a limited amount of time. So I'm showing you the process. In reality, I'm going to spend much more time reading these articles, scrutinizing them, deciding if I want to use them, not use them. But the assumption is, which I did in advance, is that I've gone through and I've read these. I'm now at the Smithsonian Institution. I'm going to trust that their information's valid. So I'm going to copy and paste this information onto the same Word document. Again, I've read through these in advance. I've got the National First Ladies Library, another legitimate site. So I'm going to take her bio from there. These are all fairly short biographies. Some of them are only a paragraph, but that's okay. I'm just taking all this information and I'm putting it together. Now I've got something here called the Miller Center. I don't know anything about them, so I would either read through and scrutinize it further, or in this case, I'm going to skip them because I don't know who they are. I've got a site here called facts.net. That doesn't sound so legitimate compared to, say, the National Archives, the Smithsonian, etc. I'm going to grab one more here. This was a bit, no, that wasn't the one I wanted. Here's a bit longer one. So when we are all done today, I'm going to go back over this profile and I'm going to scrutinize it from start to finish. So what we conclude with here today is not going to be the final product, because I want to make sure that I'm not throwing in stuff for the sake of time that turns out not to be accurate or worthwhile. And I'm also going to, just for the purposes of this exercise, I'm going to highlight her entire Wikipedia article and put in. Now, I would not do that with Wikipedia typically, but I want the material for this exercise. Okay, so I now have 11 pages in my word processor on information that I have theoretically, I have scrutinized, and I've decided this is all legitimate biographical information. I put it into one single Word document. It's not organized, but I'm now going to, 1 second here. I'm sorry. Okay. So now I'm going to go to, let's go here. I'm going to go to my AI of choice, which I prefer to use ChatGPT, but you can go to Claude, you can go to Genesis, you can go to any of the AI programs that you choose. Most of them are free. They have upgrades where you can subscribe to get more power, more information. But for your purposes, you can use the free one. I'm going to go in here and I'm just going to paste my entire Word document in here. So I just pasted in 11 pages of material. And I'm going to go up to the top of the document and I'm going to ask it a question. And I'm going to say, using the information below. Okay. First thing I'm putting in, using the information below. What I don't want it doing is making up information. And what I don't want it doing is going out and finding more information online, because I don't know where it's going and what resources it's going to be using. So I'm saying, using the information below, prepare for me, and I'm going to say a narrative summary. I'm actually going to say a narrative biographical summary. Okay, so what I've put in here, narrative, if you don't say narrative means it's going to come in a paragraph form like you would read in a book. If you don't say narrative, you might get bullet points, you might get an outline. It can come up with different forms. So I want it in a narrative form that I can use on WikiTree. So I'm going to say, prepare for me in a narrative biographical summary. Prepare for me a narrative biographical summary of the early life, because right now what I'm doing is I want to work on just the first section of my biography, which is the early life. The early life of Rose Cleveland, prior to her service in the White House. So I'm telling it where to cut off. I don't want to do her entire biography all at once because I'm going to get a whole lot of information. And also, the more you give it, the more room there is for it to make errors. So if you do it in small chunks, it's easier for you to review and make sure that it's accurate, and the easier it is for it to get it correctly. And then I'm just going to push return, and I'm going to give it a couple seconds here. Okay. So it's giving me quite a lengthy response. Let me check and see. So it is giving me a response of just 1 second here. Too many screens going. Yeah, so it's given me 700 words. That's a lot longer than I want for just for this first section. So what I can do one of two things. I can review it as is, and that's what I'm going to do first. Let's do it this way. I'm going to, so that you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to cut and paste it as a whole into under early life in her profile. Okay. So here I want you to see how long this is. So as early life, I've got all this information. That's much more information than I want to include. So I can do a couple things. I can do this by hand. I can do it manually. I can go through and I can read it and cut out the pieces that I don't like. I can shrink it down, or I can go back and I can say to it, please reduce this segment by to about 300 words. So that was 700 words. I want to cut it in half. So it's now going to rewrite it. It's going to take out what it doesn't think is important and include what it does feel is important, condensed.
Hey, David.
Yes.
You can probably also ask it to make it in a timeline for you.
You can, if that's the format that you choose. You can say, give me a timeline, and there's actually an advantage. I like to use the narratives in my biography, but to help me out in coming up with my biography, it's sometimes helpful to have that timeline, which is kind of what we did with the headings, was a bit of a timeline. But you can do that, and I'll go back and I'll show how that's done as well. But here I'm going to go back in, I'm going to reduce this. Okay. Now, here's the caution that I'm going to give, and this is the real important part. Okay, you can see how much shorter this is now. I have not read this yet, though, so I don't have any idea if this is accurate or not. This is part of a process, and what I'm trying to do is get some help with writing my biography. I'm now going to go through this and I'm going to scrutinize every single line in here to make sure that it's accurate and that it has the information that I want it to have. So I'm not asking it to just blindly write something for me and I'm just going to accept whatever it says. AI has gotten much better about not doing what we call hallucinating, which means making things up, but it's still not perfect. And I did this just yesterday. I asked, I don't want to give away upcoming pop-up that I'm doing, but I asked it, I'll give you a modified version. It was a question similar to find me 10 famous women named Edith. And it came up with this ballerina from France named Edith. So I Google her, and I don't get anything on Google. And it's telling me about, where she was born, where she performed, who she performed with, all this stuff. And I went back and I said, I don't find this person on Google. What, can you explain that? It says, I'm sorry, I double checked and there is no such person with that name. It gave me 5 paragraphs of biography on her.
Yeah, I ran into that with the U.S. Black Heritage, just trying to find, facts for people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I just went in and said, write me a biography, and see, here's the thing is if I say write me a biography, it's going to write me a biography. It may not be right, but I didn't ask for it to be right. I just asked for it to be a biography. If I said, give me a list of 10 women named Edith, it gave me a list of 10 women named Edith. It couldn't find 10, so it made up the final 3. So you've got to be very careful with that. Again, it's getting better, but I don't know that what I just posted here is accurate at all. The advantage I have is I asked it, and hopefully it followed my guidelines, but I asked it to use the information I provided it. I didn't say go out on the internet and find the information for me. I didn't ask it to do the research. What I asked it to do was take the research that I'd already done and put it into a narrative form for me. Okay. So I'm asking for help with my writing. I'm not asking for help with my research. And that's a real key distinction because you should not be relying on ChatGPT or any of the other AIs to do your research for you because it's not good at doing that. Number one, it can't access half the things that we can access. It can't get into Ancestry. It can't get into Family Search. It can't get into all those resources. So with a famous person, you're going to have more luck. But if it's an obscure famous person, if it's a famous person with two famous people with the same name, that can we just had a issue yesterday. John Walsh, who is the person you'll see on TV, he does his son was kidnapped, and he does researching crime fighting stuff now on television. And there's also a U.S. senator named John Walsh. And when the bio came back, it mixed the two people up. And it talked about his son was killed and he became a crime fighter and then he became a U.S. senator. And no, he didn't become a U.S. senator. That was a different person with the same name. So you do have to be very careful. Again, what I did here was not ask it to do my research for me. What I asked was my research and write it into a narrative. So let's go back to what Denise was just talking about. And I'm going to go back to, I can find my screen here. So I'm going to go back here, and I'm just going to say now, um, prepare this same information in a timeline. Okay. And now it's spelling it out for me in a timeline form. So if that helps you, you can then go in and write your narrative using the timeline as your outline. So for some people, that may be an easier way to do things. Um, but what I'm going to say now is, so let's say I've reviewed that biography, that section, and everything's great. I'm going to say now, continue with her life in the White House. Now, I didn't switch it out of the timeline, so it's continuing with her timeline, which is fine. So I can use that as my guide, or I can say, now write this in narrative form. And now it's giving me a narrative. Okay. Now, let's suppose I'm going to go, because Denise gave me this idea with the timeline, I'm going to go to Ancestry. We're going to take a little detour here, but I want to show you one other thing you can do. And I'm just going to go to a random family member. So what I think I have information on. Okay, so on Ancestry, they have something called Life Story. And it's kind of a timeline. And I can go from top to bottom and scroll down and take everything that they have on here, highlight it. It's completely disorganized. Go back to my, let's start a new chat to keep it clean. And I'm just going to put in that entire timeline that they have and say, please use this timeline, timeline information to create a narrative biography for Horace Putnam.
Now, Dave, did you know you could say it instead of type it?
You know, I do know that. I don't have a lot of this. I'm not
Yeah.
comfortable talking to a machine. I'm still getting used to it, but it's weird for me. My sister does it all the time, and she'll sit there asking it questions and everything, and it's talking back to her, and it knows her personality, and it knows her family members. It'll say, she'll say, "Oh, I'm here with my brother David," and say, "Oh, tell David I said hi." I'm like,
Yeah.
that's creepy.
It's like talking to Alexa or
It is.
Google. Same
Yeah, it
thing.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it responds a little bit more. I don't know. But yes, you can absolutely do that. Um, okay, so please use this timeline information to create a narrative. And again, I just push send, and now I get a narrative. Horace Putnam was born on July 21st in Missouri, the son of Joseph and Lucinda Putnam, and so on and so on. And it gives me a whole life story for him. So as I started out with, this tool is for people that are uncomfortable writing biographies and say, I can't write a biography. I'm not good at the narration. I don't know how to put my words together. And that's fine. So there are now tools that you can take that information. You just write it out in a timeline. Do it on a word processor. Just type out everything you know about the person. It doesn't have to be in order. You don't have to punctuate correctly. You don't have to. You just get your notes out there, and it will do that for you. Let me just show you one other thing along these lines. Again, this is a little bit of a tangent we're on here, but that's okay. So I'm going to go back to. Um, I'm going to go to the 1880 census for this individual. I'm going to copy the image, and I'm going to go over and I'm going to paste. I'm going to do a new chat here. I'm going to paste the image directly in, so you can see now that the image is now in ChatGPT, and I'm going to say, please tell me about Horace Putnam using the info in this census record. Give it a minute. It's going to search for him. If he can find out, sometimes the handwriting gets us tripped up, so let's see what happens here. But if you can read it, it'll give me results. It's analyzing, which tells me Huh. Not sure what it's doing here. You can see it's narrowing in. Usually it's much faster. Okay, this appears to be from the 1880 federal census. The highlighted row, the entry for Horace Putnam indicates, and it gives me all the information about him. What does it tell us? Okay, it didn't do it in narrative form. So now it's saying now put this into narrative form. And so now it's giving me a narrative about Horace Putnam. Now, again, if you don't scrutinize this, you're trusting that it read the handwriting correctly, that it didn't look at the wrong line, et cetera, et cetera. So you need to go back and make sure that everything it tells you here matches what's actually in the record. But what this is helping you with is this is helping you with your narration. It's helping you get your words into something that you can be comfortable posting. I limited its access. I didn't say go out on the internet and tell me about or find out about Horace Putnam for me. I didn't ask it to go out and do research. I just asked it to take the document that I gave it and turn it into a narration. I can give it 3 or 4 documents and say use all 3 of these documents to form a narrative for me. And it'll do that. I can take my handwritten notes, not my handwritten, but my typed up word processor notes, and I can put those in there. If I have handwritten notes and I scan them into my computer, I can paste those on over there, as long as the handwriting is neat enough for it to write it. If it can't read my handwriting, it's going to make mistakes. I have some old Swedish records, household examination records from the 1700s, and I put them in there, and it got them completely wrong because the handwriting in the old Swedish was just so messy that it couldn't make it out, and it was making up words and it was making up names, and it sounded very authoritative. If I just read the paragraph that it wrote for me, it sure sounded good, but it wasn't accurate. It didn't match what was in the writing. Um, it'll sometimes also, it'll make an assumption. It'll say, well, um, this looks like a land deed, but it's not a land deed. It's a marriage deed. But now it thinks it's a land deed. So it's going to reinterpret everything as if it's a land deed. And it's going to say, it looks like, Mr. Smith, or John Smith sold property to Alice Jones. No, John Smith married Alice Jones. It's a marriage record. But once it makes one mistake, it kind of tends to compound on top of itself. So, I can't emphasize enough that you have to read, just as if somebody was, if you had an assistant at work that wrote up an important document for you and you're going to send it off, you're probably going to want to read it first to make sure your assistant did a good job and didn't just make stuff up. There's some silly cases out there right now of attorneys that have gone to court citing legal precedent and that never existed because they went to AI and asked it to do the research, and they went up in front of a judge, and the judge says there's no such thing as case law, whatever. And it turns out there wasn't, that AI made it up, and now that attorneys getting in some pretty serious trouble because they're representing a client with information that isn't valid. So again, you got to be real careful. I don't want anybody to come away from here suggesting that I'm just saying have AI write this for you and go back and just insert it right into Wikipedia or into WikiTree. So now let's look at this bio that it did write, though. So we've got a bio on her early life, and she lived here from, well, let's see. Now I'm going to ask it. I'm going to go back to my old chat on Rose Cleveland. So if you're not familiar with how AI works, you can have multiple conversations with it going at the same time. It saves all your conversations if you have a membership, a subscription. So when I switched over to Horace Putnam, I started a new conversation. So now I'm switching back to my conversation about Rose Cleveland so that it doesn't mix the two up, because I don't want it inserting Horace Putnam information into my Rose Cleveland bio. So I'm switching back to Rose Cleveland. I'm going to say, Now, give me a narrative about her life after the White House. And the reason I'm doing this is it's because it's going to take us later in time. So I'm going to have more documentation that I can use for the next step here. And one thing I noticed already is that it gave me a much shorter answer because it learned from my request previously to make it shorter, that it's now following through with that on the second request to make it shorter as well without me having to tell it. So I'm going to go here, I'm going to insert this into her, well, I'm just going to, because this is all just practice, I'm just going to write it right in here. We'll divide it up later. Okay, so the reason I went to this later section is because the next step that I'm going to do, after I've done all of that pulling in biographical information, again, we're talking about notable people. So these are people who have information out there on the internet that we can pull in. When I'm doing my ancestors, when I do Horace Putnam or any of my other ancestors, I don't have that luxury of going to Wikipedia or going to, the Smithsonian or whatever to get information. I'm gonna have to come up with all of that out of the documents on Ancestry, Family Search, etc. But because I have this information here, that's great. It gives me a really good foundation for my narrative. But this is going to be more like a Wikipedia article at this point. What I need to do is insert the more personal information that I'm going to be able to glean from her documentation, from her birth certificate, her death certificate, her marriage certificate if she had one. She doesn't, but census records, etc. So what I'm going to do is go in and find, and the person ahead of me did a great job of finding sources here. So I have a list of documents in my head that I try to include for every notable. If I can find them, I want a birth, death, and marriage record. And I want all of the census records from 1850 forward, but if I can go back, that's fine. I'm not going to get as much info. But for more recent um, notables, I want at least 1850 to 1950, whatever years they were living through. I want to get all of those sources. If I can find them, there's some state source censuses that I may be able to include. If I've got all the US censuses, those don't tend to give me much more information, but they can still be helpful. I want immigration records and naturalization records if I can find them. And I want military records, even if it's only the draft cards, which draft cards contain a ton of good information. So those are documents that I try to find for every normal individual. I go to Ancestry, I go to Family Search, I find what I can, and just as this person did, I get all of the documentation, the sources in place. I've now got them all in one place. I don't have to go back and forth between uh, between the Ancestry, Family Search, and the other sites. I've got it all here with the links. And if you don't know about Sourcer, you need to get Sourcer, and that's a topic for another show. But if you belong to any projects, go to your leader and ask them about it. They'll help you figure it out. But with Sourcer, you can just click a button and it'll create the source for you. You come back over. It's a copy and paste. You paste it onto your WikiTree site. It looks just like what you've got here, and it has the link. And that's the real important piece, is that the link is there for you. I can now click on this and it will take me directly to the page on Family Search. I got to log in first. And it'll take me back here. And now I'm going to include this information. So I'm going to go, here's Rose Cleveland, 4 years of age. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do all of it right now, but I've got Rose Cleveland as a 4-year-old. If I go back to her, to any tabs open here, let's see. No, did I lose it? I think I lost it. Here we are. Okay. So I'm going to go back up here. So that was 1850. So I'm going to go up here. So right here we have Rose Cleveland was born in 1846. She was the youngest child of Reverend Richard Cleveland and Anne Cleveland. She was raised in a devout Catholic or devout Presbyterian household. Um, After several months within New York State, her father died when Rose was just 7. So that census record was when she was 4. So in this section right here, I'm going to insert information about her census record. So I'm going to say, so right here, I want to make a space, and I'm going to type in here, and I can refine this later, but I'm going to say when Rose was 4 years old, she was residing, and I didn't pay attention to see where it was. Okay, I'm just going to make something up rather than go back, and because again, we're going to delete all this later. She was residing with her parents and older brother in New York City. Okay, so what I'm illustrating here is that I'm inserting into the information that I gathered from all those public resources. I'm now taking the private documentation and I'm inserting that information into my narrative. And this is what's going to make it more genealogically sound and make it more of a WikiTree biography than a Wikipedia biography. I'm going to do that for every document that I have. Where it says this individual here wasn't married, but let's suppose she was, and it says she married this individual. Well, I've got the marriage certificate, so I can say she married him on such and such a day in this church at this location by a Presbyterian minister. I can pull all that personal detail out of the document. I can say who the witnesses were. I can then go, after I'm done doing going through my census records, going through my vital records, I can then go over and do a search on newspapers.com or another newspaper site, and I can pull that information out. I can pull abstracts from that and insert that information here. So what I ultimately have done is I've used ChatGPT to take all the common knowledge information from the Smithsonian Institution, the National Archives, the White House website. In this case, I use Wikipedia. I normally wouldn't do that, but I took all that common information site. I wrote out a biographical draft, and now I'm going to go through and use that, edit it, modify it, insert the vital record information, insert the census record information, um, enhance it with perhaps some newspaper articles, etc. I'm going to turn it into a more genealogically sound narrative than I got with what AI was able to give me. When I'm all done with that, so let's suppose I come up here and I'm going to go to my first paragraph, and I've inserted this information, but I'm not a good writer, so it's kind of clunky now. So I can take this paragraph and I can go back to ChatGPT again, and I can say, I always say please, even though I don't need to. Please refine this paragraph. It doesn't really worry about spelling, but okay, so please refine this paragraph for me, and it'll clean it up a little bit. So the sentence that it revised here, by 1850, at just 4 years old, she was living in New York City with her parents and an older brother. So you can take your own writing send it over to your AI, and it'll clean that up as well. Okay? So again, the idea here is to give you some tools if you're not a good writer. If you're a good writer, you probably don't need all this. I'm a so-so writer. I can do a lot of my writing myself, but I still like to clean it up, because when I take my writing, I think that's really good, and I send it over here to AI, it's even better. It gets rid of some of the repetition. It gives me maybe some more um, um, some vocabulary that maybe I wouldn't normally use, but I like what it says. That said, sometimes I hate what it writes. Sometimes I look at it and I'm like, who talks like this? It just doesn't sound. And I'd say anybody that reads this is going to know that AI wrote that, because normal people don't talk like that. If you have an AI subscription, it will learn your writing style over time, and mine has gotten much better. It knows what I like and don't like. I don't like flowery wording. I don't want to hear about what a wonderful, extraordinary time she had in Washington. I just want to know she went to Washington. Um, so I tell it no flowery words. And it'll tell me now, if I ask it to write me a paragraph, say, here's your paragraph with no flowery words. It knows I don't even have to tell it anymore. It knows not to give me the flowery words. It will almost always end your narrative with a really nice complimentary ending paragraph at the end. So I did a biography on Al Capone for WikiTree. And it ended up, the final paragraph said something to the effect of, despite his shortcomings, he was a man devoted to his community, and he, left a lasting legacy, and and it was true, but it's not how I want to end Al Capone's, narrative. So usually I just cross off the final paragraph. I always know it's going to give me that flowery final paragraph, so I just end that. All right, but again, it's a warning why not to just cut and paste without reading it. You got to read it. You got to make sure that it's accurate. You got to make sure it matches the facts, and you got to make sure that it matches your style, what you want. It's what you want to reflect on you. Another thing that I will caution you from, and this is a little bit of a judgment call, but it will say things like, I'm going to go back and see if it does it in her profile. Let's see here. Yeah, see, it knows not to do it for me, so it's not too. It will put in commentary or judgment in a sense. So it'll say things. Um, let's see. So it'll say something like, she was, coming from a small town, she was in awe of what she found in Washington, D.C. Okay, well, what is my source for that? How do I know that she was awed by it? It seems like a petty little thing, but I don't know that she was awed by Washington, D.C. That's it. It sounds good, but I don't have a source for that. And everything on WikiTree is supposed to be sourced, even if it's a general source like the Smithsonian Bio or something. If I'm going to include that, I need to go back and find out, did I get that from the Smithsonian article? Did I get that from the National Archives article? Where did I hear that? An example was a woman whose husband went off to the Civil War and was killed. And it said she was devastated to learn that her husband had been killed in the war. Well, I don't know that she was devastated by that. I know a lot of women were forced into marriages that they weren't completely happy with during that era, that probably still to this day, but um, for all I know, she was overcome with joy when she found out her husband wasn't coming back. We don't know that. So to assume that she was devastated, um, it just it's just something that I wasn't comfortable doing. Now, you can read through yours and decide whether you want to include this information or not. But a lot of times when I read articles by people that do notable profiles, one of the clues that I have is, if they're not a scholar on whoever this individual is, they're putting information in there that only a scholar would probably know. I can do research and find out when the birth date was. I can find out where they went to school. I can find out who they married, all that stuff. But um, that she was passionate about her music from the time she was a small child. Okay, how do I know that? How do I know she was passionate about it? Did her parents make her study the violin, or was she really passionate about it? If I've got a source for that, great, I can put that in there. If I don't have a source, I don't want that in my bio. So be careful of those kinds of things that AI will put in there that sound logical, that sound like a reasonable assumption, but you really can't assume people's feelings, their emotions, etc., unless you've got some sort of scholarly research to back that up. And again, by scholarly, I mean the Smithsonian, the National Archives. I don't mean Wikipedia. I don't mean somebody's blog. You can use those for guidance, but those are not going to be legitimate sources any more than somebody's online tree at Ancestry, or a bio on Find a Grave that doesn't tell you who scrutinized the material. Okay, so before I move on, I want to talk about images. But before I do, does anybody have any questions, concerns about what we've talked about with bios?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
David, how much was your Chat GPT? Because I see that there are several levels of Chat GPT. And I was wondering, what level you're on.
So I use the paid subscription, which is $20 a month. You can get on for free, and you can do almost everything for free that you can do with the paid subscription. The paid subscription, if you're doing images, creating images, which I do, you're limited on the free versus you can get like 5 images a day, and it's unlimited on the paid. And as far as the other research, at a certain point, it'll say you've used up your allotment for the day, and you can keep using it, but it's not going to be as quick. It's going to slow down. It may not do as thorough of research, but for most people, that's okay. In fact, if you haven't been using AI, then there's no reason to jump to the paid subscription right away. Use it and see if you need to move up to a paid subscription. A lot of people start using it and then find out that start using it every day, all day, because AI is not only for genealogy. AI is for anything. I was at Cheesecake Factory the other day. I'd never been to Cheesecake Factory, and they give me a menu with 45 different types of cheesecake. I don't know what to order. So I asked ChatGPT, what should I order? And it went through all the online reviews and everything and told me what the top cheesecake was at Cheesecake Factory.
Awesome.
So, those are silly things, but it's unlimited what you can do. I use it with cooking a lot. I'll have a recipe, and I don't have garlic cloves, so can I use garlic powder? I ask it, what ratio what do I need to do to change to use the garlic powder? And it'll tell me that. Um, the a certain light on my dashboard came on a while back, and I took a picture of it and sent it to ChatGPT and said, what does this light mean? Told it what kind of car I have, and it's able to access the manual for the car and tell me what it is and what I need to do about it. So there's all kinds of things that it can do. if you start experimenting and working with it, you may find after a week or two that, yeah, you need to upgrade to the full subscription, but I wouldn't do that until you've experimented and see if that's what you need or not. So yeah, and I was also going to say, and somehow my subscription got canceled, and I didn't even know it until they sent me a message saying, we'd like you to come back and renew. I thought I'd been using the subscription format all along, and apparently I hadn't been. So I didn't even notice when I went back to the non-subscription format. So start out with the free, and then also experiment with it. I use ChatGPT just because that's the one I learned on, but there's Genesis, there's Claude. Apparently they all have their strengths and weaknesses, things that they do better than others. So depending on what you're using them for, some do research better, some do writing better. I'm not a tech guy, so and that's something. I'm not a tech guy, so what I'm telling you is, coming from somebody that has no idea how all this stuff works. I don't ask those questions. I just use it. Okay, so images. So copyright is a concern.
Denise has a question.
Oh, Denise had a question. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Denise. Yep.
No, it wasn't a question. I was just going to add to that because, depending on what browser you're using, like Chrome has Gemini, Microsoft, if you have Microsoft 365 for your Word and things like that, it's got an AI function. You see the little on David's screen here. If you look to the right, you'll see a little rainbow symbol. That's the AI function for his Microsoft piece there because he's in Word right now.
So
that's called Copilot. Yeah,
it comes over on the side of my document here.
Yeah, and that's your Copilot, and it pretty much works the same way Chat GPT does. The exact same thing. So, and those are free because they're coming with the package that you already have. So,
thank you, Denise.
Yeah,
and let me show you just, again, this wasn't intended necessarily to be an AI training, but since we're asking the questions, start a new chat here. So, what would life have been like for my farmer ancestors my family comes from Michigan, which has a population of about 200 people in 1850. Okay, so if I want to get context to flesh out, we talked about writing the biography and then getting some specific information from your records, from your census records and your vital records, getting more specific information. But I may also want to broaden out and get some more contextual information to write my narrative. So I can do that, and it's going to tell me. It always tells me I have a great question. That's the first thing it tells me. Great question. Well, Misak didn't exist in 1850. The village was founded in 1870. But it's going to give me what life in that area was like. It tells me right here. So typical crops that were grown. Okay, that's a question I may not have thought to ask. I know there are farmers, but I haven't ever asked because if I did ask the question, I wouldn't know where to get the information. So I don't ask the question. What did the men do? What did the women do? Transportation by horseback, by ox cart, by walking. The lumber economy, community and faith. Then I can say, is there a church in Misak? So I want to know where they went to church. And now it's going to search for, it's got 4 churches here. So I can ask further questions about that. Well, if I know they were Methodists, I got Misak United Methodist Church. I can ask when the church was founded. there may be church histories online or other information that it can pull together for me. And I can ask it. I can say when I ask a question, um, please provide your source. If I go back and I see something and I'm not clear on it, where did you get that information from? I can ask it those questions, and it'll clarify for me. And that's where sometimes you'll catch it. You'll say, "Where did you get that from?" And they'll come back and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. That information isn't accurate." Uh, so it'll tell you. But this just gives you it's good for brainstorming. Um, um, what resources are available for researching in music? So it's going to give me a list of the Music Area Historical Museum, the Wexford County Historical Museum in Cadillac. So it's giving me resources for it. I can say, where can I find obituaries? Where can I find marriage records? And it'll give me that information. So it does a lot more than just writing bios. That's a real big piece of what I use it for. But there's unlimited number of things that you can do on with AI. Okay, so let's go back to images. So okay. So any image produced in the United States before 1931 is considered to be in the public domain. So let's break that down a little bit. It's very important that you hear that as in the United States, because different countries have different rules. So if the pictures was produced in Canada, if it was produced in Europe, then it doesn't follow that rule. This is only the United States. Images created before 1931 are in the public domain. If somebody recreates an image online of a copyright-free image, so for example, somebody takes the Mona Lisa and posts the picture of the Mona Lisa online, they can't recopyright that. You can use that image to, on WikiTree or on your personal documentation, because it is an exact replica or reproduction of a copyright-free image. If somebody takes a photograph that's copyright-free and they post it on their website, they can't recopyright it. You can use that image. Now, if I take a picture of the Mona Lisa with my brother standing in front of it, that I can copyright, because now I've changed the image. It's not just an image of the Mona Lisa, it's an image of my brother standing in front of the Mona Lisa. So that can be copyrighted. But if you're talking about, for example, presidential portraits that were created at the time of George Washington or John Adams or Abraham Lincoln, those are going to be in the public domain. A presidential photograph taken of Abraham Lincoln or Andrew Johnson are going to be in the public domain. If somebody alters it and does something to change it creatively, they Photoshop in Abraham Lincoln's wife next to him, well, now that's a new image and that can be copyrighted. But the original images are not copyrighted. They can't be recopyrighted by people. Images after 1931 become more tricky, and I'm not going to get into the details on that because there's so many intricacies that I don't want somebody to misinterpret something I say and take it as legal advice and get themselves into trouble with it. So I'm not going to get into a lot of details of what you can and can't use after 1931, except to say that if it is an image produced by a active member of the U.S. government, on-duty member of the U.S. government, including military, you can use those images. So pictures taken of presidents by the White House staff, pictures taken of, say, General Eisenhower by a military employee, those are going to be public domain. So you can use images that are created by a government employee who is acting within acting within the terms of their employment. A lot of times, if you're looking for pictures of celebrities and non-government, non-presidential people, you can find pictures that were taken at a government event. Picture taken at the Kennedy Center Awards, a picture taken at if somebody was visiting troops in Vietnam or something along those lines. You can often find pictures that, as long as you can show that they were taken by a government employee, you can use those. So for the presidential profiles, that gives us a lot of opportunities to find not just for the presidents, but the first ladies, sometimes family members. When you start getting into things like siblings and that, it gets a little more difficult. If you have a person, let's say, I'm trying to think which presidents have. Okay, Bill Clinton has a half brother out there somewhere. If I have an image of him, it's definitely going to have been taken after 1931. So I either need to find a picture that was taken by a government employee, which I may or may not be able to do, or an image that I know has been released by the creator of the image, released into the public domain. And the only way I know to find those images is through Wikimedia Commons, which I'm going to show you now. If you go to Wikipedia, and so here we have our Wikipedia page for Rose Cleveland. Is that what everybody's seeing? Wikipedia. If you go up here to Tools, well, before I do that, I want to show you one quick little thing before I forget. So we're going to go to Tools. If you're on Rose Cleveland's page, I don't know if you realize that we have a direct link between WikiTree and Wikipedia. So just as if you are on our WikiTree page, you can click on the Wikipedia link that usually we put on a notables profile, and I'll take you over to the Wikipedia page. If you go up to Tools, you go down to the bottom is Wikidata. And usually we're at the very bottom because it's alphabetized. So I'm going to scroll all the way down. What you'll see down here, you're going to see on the left here is these are the various languages that her page appears in. But if we scroll right above that, you're going to see WikiTree person ID. And she is Cleveland 460. And you can click on it and it'll take you right back to her WikiTree page. So if you're ever on Wikipedia and you want to get over to that person's profile on WikiTree, go to Wikidata, scroll to the bottom and find WikiTree entry, and you can click on it, it'll take you straight over. And a lot of times we'll be doing that. Again, with the notables, I'll be reading something and I'll say, this person's interesting. I wonder if they have a WikiTree page. That's the easiest way to find it. Or somebody will email me and say, oh, so-and-so passed away today. Do they have a WikiTree page? Quickest way to find out is to go here and see if they have a link. Now, they may still have a page even if there isn't a link, but 95% of the time they're going to have a direct link. Okay, so let's go back to the question of images. So I'm going to do the same thing here. So I'm going to go back up to Tools, and instead of going all the way to the bottom to Wikidata, right above it, I'm going to go to Wikimedia. And if I click on Wikimedia, in this case, it only has one image. So I'm going to go to someone else just to, I'll tell you what, I'm going to go to Grover Cleveland. Let's do Grover Cleveland because I want to show you how. So I go to Tools, I go down to Wikimedia Commons, and it's going to give me a bunch of images that are theoretically in the public domain. These are images that are used somewhere on Wikipedia, typically. They're not always used on his page, but they're used somewhere. So if I click on the picture itself, so let's click on this one. Down here, there's a blue box that says more details. I'm going to click on that. And when I scroll down, it's going to give me a box here, this blue box. It says the author died in 1920, so this work is in the public domain in its country of origin and countries where the copyright item is the author's life plus 100 years. So in a lot of countries copyright is based on the death of the creator of the profile. In our country, it's based on our country. For those of us that are American, United States, it's based on when the image was created. In many other countries, it's based on the death of the photographer, or if it's a book, the author, etc. That's more difficult to determine because it's fairly easy to determine when the picture was made. It's a lot harder to know 50 years later if the photographer is still living or not. But right here is your rationale. I want to go to somebody a little more modern. Let's do who's somebody in the news right now. Let's do I'm going to go to George Clooney, okay? And I'm going to go to his Wikipedia page. Again, the first thing I'm going to show you, if I go to Tools and go down to Wikidata, and I scroll all the way down, right above the languages, I see right here, WikiTree person ID, he's Clooney 8, and it'll give me a link back to WikiTree. But I'm not here to do that. I'm here to get his pictures. So you can click on his picture directly here, but if you want to see all the pictures available, go to Tools, go to Wikimedia Commons, and here are pictures that are probably in the public domain, and I say probably because sometimes they'll tell you they're not. But let's say, okay, I want to use this picture here in 2016. I like that picture. But this was obviously taken after 1931. So how is it in the public domain? What is my rationale for being allowed to use this picture? I'm going to go to more details. I'm going to scroll down. This file was a work of an employee of the Executive Office of the President of the United States, taken or made as part of this person's official duties. So that picture was taken by a member of the U.S. government, and therefore it's in the public domain. If a U.S. employee makes the picture, because the way the philosophy of the United States, in the sense that we are all part of the ownership of the government. If the government owns it, then we the people own it. So if we go up here above, it says description. After meeting with actor and human rights activist George Clooney, the president invited him and 3 of his colleagues to shoot hoops at the White House basketball court. The photo garnered a lot of attention and was hung on the west walls of the West Wing. So it was taken at the White House by a White House employee, and therefore it's in the public domain. Okay. Now, if you find that on another site, let's say you go to Internet Movie Database and you find a picture of your favorite movie star, Internet Movie Database doesn't tell us how they got the rights to that picture. It may be that they're in violation and that it is copyrighted. It may be that they paid somebody to have the rights to post that image. We don't know. So we can't assume because it's on their website that it's okay to use on our website. Every once in a while on Wikipedia and Wikimedia Commons, you'll find an image and it will say, this image is copyrighted. And they talk about using it within the terms of fair use. That's what I'm not going to get into in terms of what you can and can't do in terms of fair use, because it gets complicated, gets messy, and I don't want anybody getting in trouble because they misunderstood something that I said. But basically the concept of fair use is you can use small portions of a published work under certain circumstances. So for example, if you used a quote out of a book, that's generally acceptable under the terms of fair use. The quote is still copyrighted as part of the book, but you're not republishing the whole book. You're just using a quote or a paragraph. YouTube users learn this. How much of a clip of a song can they use in the background? How much of a film clip can they show? If you show 30 seconds, that's probably okay. If you show 20 minutes, now you're getting into copyright violations. So where that line is vague, and it just depends on a whole lot of circumstances. And even then, it ultimately is one of those things that winds up going to court, and the judge gets to make the decision based on both sides' arguments. You don't want to end up in court having to make those arguments. So if you're not absolutely clear and comfortable that your image is in the public domain, it's best to just not mess with it. You can reach out to the Notables team leaders, myself and Scott, and we can help you make a determination. If we decide that it's not appropriate, we can often help you find an alternative. And then sometimes we just have to do without an image. Particularly, the more obscure the person, the more obscure and the more recently they've lived, um, the less likely we're going to be able to find a copyright-free image. Um, Now, another alternative is to, if you find out that an image is copyrighted and you know who holds the copyright, you can always write to that person and ask them if you can have permission to use it. If they give you permission, then you're good to go. So, any questions on images? Okay. I think that probably covers pretty much everything. Is there anything that I haven't covered regarding creating profiles that anybody has questions on?
Cindy had one about stickers or
Stickers, okay. Is Cindy here?
It was Sandy. The
Oh,
question was, do we recognize stickers when you're dealing with descendants of notables?
do we recognize stickers? So the U.S.
Yeah.
President's Project has a descendant sticker, and we are in the process of revising our stickers in our box. So I'm not sure whether we're going to have a general descendants. We may, and it'll say so and so is a descendant of a U.S. president. We don't for notables in general, so we wouldn't have one that says so and so is a descendant of John Wayne or whoever. But there is currently there's a box. If you don't know the difference between a box and a sticker, um, if a project manages a profile, they put a box on it, and the box is linked to the email. So when we put our notables project or U.S. President's project as a project manager, we then have to put a box that says this project is managed by the U.S. or this profile is managed by the U.S. President's project or by the notables. If we don't manage it, then we use a sticker, and the sticker will just say this individual is a notable. So a box says this individual is managed by the notables project, and the sticker says this person is a notable, but it's not necessarily managed by us. We have on WikiTree currently, we just last week passed 100,000 notables on WikiTree. We do not manage, Notables Project does not manage all 100,000. In fact, of deceased notables, we only manage 90 something, not even 100 profiles. We send those out to let individuals manage. Living notables, we have about 6,000, 6 to 7,000. We do manage all of those. So all of our living notables will have a box. All of our deceased notables will have a sticker. So currently we have a box that says this person is a descendant of a president, and this profile is managed by the project. We're going to get rid of all of those and just have one that says this person is managed by the U.S. President's Project. And then everything else will go on stickers. So then we may or may not have a sticker that says this person is a descendant of the president. We just haven't had a conversation to make that decision yet, so we may or may not. I'm not aware of any other descendancy stickers. Although I imagine there might be some. This person's a descendant of a Mayflower passenger. Some of the colonial type projects, they may have descendancy stickers. I'm not familiar with those. And then there's also stickers that are more general, like this person was a mason, this person was a carpenter, this person was a centenarian. There's all kinds of different stickers that you can use that are far too many for us to go over here. There's probably thousands of them. And a sticker doesn't need any approval. They generally aren't attached. I will say there's only one sticker that is important to understand, and that is the notable sticker. If you put a notable sticker on the profile, the CC7 of that person will show up at the top of the page. So when you go to a notable profile, you'll see the CC7. The way we know that that's a notable person is because somebody put the sticker on there. No other stickers do that to my knowledge. So it's important if you have a notable that you put that sticker on there, and that otherwise we don't get to see the CCC up there. We tried at one point to have WikiTree tried to have everybody CCC on their page, but apparently the servers couldn't handle all of that. It was too much, so they had to limit it only to notable people. But that's the one sticker that I'm aware of that actually has a function beyond just kind of being bling. All right. Anything else? Well, I appreciate everybody's time. I'm always available for questions if you have them. You can email me. You probably find my name on pretty much any Living Notables profile, but G2G post all the time. We've got several challenges going on at all times, so you can find my name there. And link to me through my email. You can find us over on Discord. We do have a U.S. Presidents and a Notables Discord channel. So there's lots of different ways to find me, but if you ever have any questions, you're not sure about something, notables related or not, feel free to email me. If I don't have an answer for you, I usually know somebody that does. And with that, we'll wrap it up. Again, I appreciate everybody's time and look forward to seeing some of you over at the President's Project. We certainly could use some help. We got 620 profiles to get ready for the 4th of July, so we definitely welcome your help.
Thank you, David.
Thanks,
Thank you.
David.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.